What's up, guys? Jordan McAbee here, fantasyracingonline.com, and today we're going to do some DFS lineups for Atlanta. I actually have some notes. Most of the time I'm just talking off the cuff these last however many weeks since we started this whole YouTube thing. Thank you to everybody that's subscribed so far, by the way. That's awesome. If you don't, click that button. But Atlanta. All right. So we got another high wear racetrack. We had Homestead earlier this year. If you remember, William Byron started like 32nd, ended up leading over 100 laps, had the best average running position, the second best green flag. That's not what I want. I click green flag passes. Just a second here. William Byron, great race. I've mentioned it in at least a couple of my articles this week. Here we go. William Byron, second best green flag speed. So Atlanta and Homestead, two most similar tracks on the circuit or on the schedule. But you shouldn't. I would be very hesitant to put all your eggs into that basket of, looking solely at Homestead speeds and saying, well, Kurt Busch had the best green flag speed, so he's the best pick at Atlanta this week, or I don't know, like Denny Hamlin, 13th in green flag speed. This one, Homestead started in the very late afternoon, ended under the lights. Now we have Atlanta. We had the time change here recently. Atlanta's starting about the same time. Atlanta's going to start at 3:15 Eastern. Homestead started at 3:45 Eastern. But this race is basically all during late afternoon. This track isn't going to change much. It's not going to change. The track conditions aren't going to change like Homestead did. So just be very cautious when looking at statistics from Homestead race. Yes, it's great data. It's recent data. It's 2021 data that we can look at. But just know that anybody that had a bad race that race also elevated other people and made them look better. And so not only do you have guys like Eric Almirola here in 29th in green flag speed, or Chase Briscoe in 28th green flag speed, that also moves other guys up a little bit. So in addition to Homestead, we also had Las Vegas, which is another 1.5 mile track. Definitely not as high wear as Homestead and Atlanta, but definitely something to look at. Just because, once again, it's 2021 data, and we can get a kind of a good idea of at least who was fastest at Las Vegas and who kind of has the speed here to start out the year. I personally think Joe Gibbs Racing is really good right now and not getting enough credit. Everybody's talking about Hendrick. Joe Gibbs Racing has more speed than I expected to start out this year. Does that mean they're going to go out and dominate a ton of races? Not necessarily, but they have more speed than we're used to, which is where you can kind of not exploit, but you get what I'm saying, kind of have an edge in fantasy if you get onto that JGR train early, if in fact they do have as much more speed as I personally think they do. Let's look at so green flag speed at Las Vegas. Obviously Kyle Larson dominated that race. Brad Keselowski, second best. Ryan Blaney was third fastest. I think he started like mid-20s, I think, in that race, had a top 5 car. That was the race when I know I was a little concerned about whether Penske was going to be great. Turned out they had nothing wrong with them at all. Denny Hamlin, of course, always solid, not super fast. And then William Byron, once again, top 5 in green flag speed there at Las Vegas. Average running position, Larson, Keselowski, Hamlin, Blaney, Byron. Fastest guys ended up front. The only exception really was Alex Bowman, who had to pit late. De Benedetto, I think he had an issue as well, but Bowman definitely, he was running top 5 most of the day, top Top 8, I think he was running 7th or 8th when he had to pit late and finished 27th. Let's check out starting lineup for Atlanta here real quick. We got Hamlin, Truex on the front row, Logano, Keselowski, second row, Elliott, Larson, third row. So we got Gibbs, Penske, Hendrick. Kevin Harvick starting 7th, Bell starting 8th, Byron starting 9th, and Ryan Blaney rounding out the top 10. Chalk plays for place differential. Of course, we got Austin Cindric, who's running a Penske car this week. He's running the 33. We also have Anthony Alfredo, who I wrote up as a cash play this week. Super cheap, should move up. All he has to do is not wreck. I think John Hunter Nemechek finished 23rd in that car at this race last year. Don't have those high expectations for Alfredo, but as long as he doesn't wreck, he should finish in the high 20s. Got Reddick and Newman starting 29th, 28th. Cole Custer starting 27th. And then big names, we got Kyle Busch starting 19th. Alex Bowman starting 14th. Not as far back as like a major place differential play, but still kind of down there. Let's go to my algorithm predicted finishing order for this race really quick. So predicting Truex to win, Kyle Larson also contender. You see their power indexes here, 39 and 38. Then there's quite a bit of gap back to Kevin Harvick finishing 3rd. Pole sitter Hamlin finishing 4th, it's projecting. Keselowski 5th, Chase Elliott 6th, Joey Logano 7th, Kurt Busch, who has been very good not only here at Atlanta, but at high wear tracks in general. Predicted to finish 8th, his brother Kyle predicted to finish 9th, and then Blaney, Bowman, Bell, top 12. So a little bit surprising, Austin Dillon projected to finish 13th. Before we get to the projections, let me check my notes real quick. So first off, the biggest question this week is what kind of day is Kevin Harvick going to have on Sunday? He looked pretty much like his normal self. I still don't think it was, we didn't see the true Kevin Harvick speed at Phoenix last week, but still ran up in the top 5 for a lot of the day. I forget where he ended up finishing. Let's look here quick if this loads. Finished 6th. Good day. Not great. Not a typical Kevin Harvick at Phoenix, but still a solid day. Atlanta, though, is a completely different story. I cannot state how much Kevin Harvick has dominated. I can state, but it's hard to really get a grip on how much he has dominated this racetrack. If you look here, he has 2 wins in the last 3 races, but that doesn't really tell the whole story. Look at these lap led numbers. Over the last 8 races at Atlanta, Kevin Harvick has led, lost my mouse here. Kevin Harvick has led over 1,100 laps over the last 8 races. Mind you, that includes this 8th race right here where he led 0, and the lap before that, he led 101. So over the last 9 races, he's led over 1,200 laps. The next closest driver over the last 8 Atlanta races when it comes to laps led is Kyle Larson, who has only ran 6 races over that 8-year span, or not 8-year, but yeah, it would be 8 years, wouldn't it? 8-year span. Larson's only ran 6 races, but he's led. Oops, I got my chart wrong there. Second highest is Logano with 195. Larson's 3rd with 149. So literally, the driver with the most laps led over the last 8 years of Atlanta is Kevin Harvick with 1,111 laps led. Next highest is Joey Logano with 195. Pure domination. You look at fastest laps. Let me make sure I got this right. Kevin Harvick, 415 fastest laps over the last 8 Atlanta races. Next highest is Joey Logano with 193. Not the gap with laps led, but still, Kevin Harvick is averaging 51.9 fastest laps per race over the last 8 Atlanta races. The question is, does that Kevin Harvick show up on Sunday, and does he finally get back to his what we were used to in 2020? I dedicated in 3 or 4 or 5 paragraphs to my thoughts on what we're going to get out of Harvick. You can read it in my DraftKings article. If you're on YouTube, it's linked in the description. If you're on fantasyracingonline.com, you should know how to get there. I want that click. So go check it out. That's just how I think it's going to play out with Harvick on Sunday. When it comes to DFS, it really, so these, with Harvick's domination, our construction of lineups could get a little skewed. What it's going to come down to for the optimal lineup on Sunday, I think, and this is both for DraftKings and FanDuel, is how many dominators are we going to have? Are we going to have one dominator, which has been the case for most years? You know, it's typically been Kevin Harvick every year, the main dominator. And then obviously there's like a secondary dominator that usually gets into the optimal, but not necessarily. You know, if it's the pole sitter and they finished 20th, but they led 50 laps and had 25 fastest laps, probably not going to get into the optimal. But do we have one dominator on Sunday? Do we have 2 dominators, 3 dominators? I know who my favorites are. I think it's going to be a 2 dominator race. What happens with Hamlin? Does Hamlin come in there and lead laps? Something definitely to consider. Obviously, the Penske cars, you know, they're not really... When I think of Penske, when I go heavy on Penske, it's... let me rephrase that. My biggest DFS days have been going heavy on Penske and them dominating. Because the thing about Penske is they typically do not dominate. They don't put up a ton of fastest laps. They don't lead a bunch of laps until the races that they do. You know, when they go out and it doesn't happen, you know, it's not like a, you know, Harvick, like we saw last year. There's going to be Harvick or Hamlin dominating this race, or another Gibbs car. Like Penske, it just doesn't happen as often. They get the finishes, but that's not how you win in DFS. So what's going to come down to on Sunday is dominators. And one thing you have to pay attention to, or definitely think about, is the competition caution on lap 25. So obviously this year, picking the pole sitter has not been the the strategy whatsoever. And, you know, with Hamlin on the pole on Sunday and Truex starting second, Larson starting up there, Penske cars, you know, this could very well be another week where the pole sitter doesn't do anything. But the way that my jinx goes, the second I say that Hamlin's an awful pick from the pole, he's going to go out there and lead 150 laps on Sunday or something, especially because it's Hamlin. Yeah. But so that competition caution is going to be huge. One, it definitely helps the driver starting in the back, like Austin Cindric, you know, Ryan Newman, to get them a little caught up after coming through the field in the first 25 laps. But what it'll also do, that'll be a very key pit stop, because Hamlin or Truex or one of the Penske cars could easily have the best car to start out the race and dominate the first 25 laps. They have a bad pit stop, and, you know, and Larson gets out front then, assuming he doesn't speed on pit road, you know, and then, you know, Hamlin's dominator potential is over at that point, because then Larson's out front and he's dominating. So definitely something to consider. You know, I'm guilty of this every week. You don't, with there being no qualifying, and it's obviously it's been like, I don't know if it's been over a year now, but it's been a long time since we've actually had qualifying. And I know I'm still having trouble not just plugging in the top starters and trying to get those early dominator points. It's just not happening as frequently lately. But let's get into let's work on DraftKings here first. So I got my where are my projections at? This is FanDuel. All right, so got my DraftKings projections posted on Friday. Full write-up. Check it out if you haven't already. Like I said, links in the description. I think this article is one of my better ones, definitely of this year. Ton of information in here. Went over Kevin Harvick, went over my tournament picks, my cash core. Another thing I added this week is projected ownership. Now, I have long said that I am not very good at projecting ownership. And that's definitely, before it was in my head, like I wasn't good at looking at the full field and kind of I knew the guys that I was going to be heavy on, and someone who I thought I would be the only one on or it wouldn't be very popular would end up being, 30% owned that week. So in my head, I'm not great. So I have been working on a bit of a formula to try to predict these ownerships. So, take these with a grain of salt. I'm not going to sit here and say I've honed in on this and like my projections are awesome, but it definitely gives me something to work with, and hopefully it does you as well. So Cindric, obviously, chalk play. Same with Alfredo, Reddick. Expect all those guys to get pretty good ownership. I think Kevin Harvick's going to be really grab a bunch of ownership as well, simply because of the way you can build a lineup this week with Anthony Alfredo, with some of the lower dollar guys, the mid-range place differential guys. You can easily fit in Kevin Harvick in a lineup, so I think that's going to bump his ownership up. Obviously, Larson, last time he raced here, he had the car to beat. Now, obviously, he's in a Hendrick car. It's one of the fastest cars on the track right now. Definitely last week, he got hit with the Jordan jinx last week at Phoenix. 2 speeding penalties plus the penalty to start the race, but definitely had a race-winning car last week. Expect that fully again. I think, Hamlin will get plenty. People are still picking the pole sitter, myself included. I did it last week. I did it the week before. No, Hamlin was at Homestead. I didn't do that, but definitely picked a lot of Harvick in that race. And then, of course, Newman, Elliott should get plenty of ownership as well as Truex. My projections got Truex and Larson as the 2 main dominators projected and the 2 solid finishers. So they are head and shoulders above everybody else in my projected fantasy points for DraftKings. Keselowski, 3rd best. Harvick, 4th best. Got Hamlin projected 5th best. William Byron and Ryan Blaney, both projected to score about 50 points. And then my ceiling. So you'll see Kevin Harvick, modest score, especially for him at Atlanta at 57 points. So my ceiling for him is 93. Just because, again, I explained this in the article. Please go look at that. He has potential this week. I just have my doubts on it. But obviously, Truex has a huge ceiling, as does Larson. Harvick, Hamlin, it could easily end up being, Homestead 2020. You remember, not many people were on Hamlin that race, and he dominated it. Could definitely see that happen again. Keselowski and Logano. Definitely some pretty high ceilings, but not as high as you'd expect. Again, just don't see them dominating super often. So my projections, the top lineup that is spit out with my projections is, let me make sure I'm copying this right. So obviously it loves Truex and Larson. That's going to be the base for most lineups it spits out. Truex Larson. So the top lineup actually is Truex Larson, Byron, Reddick, Newman, and Alfredo. Which honestly, that's in my mind, that's just a cash play. Even more so if you take Byron off and you go Cindric or Bowman. Definitely Cindric. I don't play cash games very often, but if I did, right here would be my lineup. Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., Austin Cindric, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Newman, Anthony Alfredo. I might, it's pretty interchangeable there in the mid eights for me. I might switch out Reddick for Bowman. Just depends. I did write up Bowman as a tournament play this week though. But my brain, I'm not, I have such a GPP tournament brain that my cash lineups end up being tournament lineups. I go for first no matter what the hell I'm playing. This whole safe strategy it's lost on me entirely. But Reddick definitely has the place differential potential more than Bowman. Bowman has, I think, a little bit better dominator potential. So I think going back to my projections here, I think they're both pretty close. Yep. 44.4 for Bowman, 44.1 for Reddick, with Bowman having a little bit better or higher ceiling. So, so cash lineup would probably be this. If I want to differentiate myself, I'm going to go Bowman. And obviously Cindric's in there because he starts dead last and can't lose any. The number 2 lineup has Truex Larson, Keselowski, which I don't love this lineup. Newman, Buescher, and Stenhouse. Leaves $400 on the table. My projections love Chris Buescher this week. And I had to go back and double check, to make sure I didn't enter anything wrong or nothing somehow got screwed up. I was like, why the hell does this like Chris Buescher so much? But it keeps spitting out Chris Buescher. If you read the article, wrote him up as a tournament play as well because of that, mainly. And as I further dug, I can understand why. But this one right here, this is definitely a tournament lineup. I don't love having Keselowski in addition to Truex and Larson. If it just depends. If we have 3 dominators and it's those guys, I can see it happening. So one thing to note about Keselowski is, and like I said, don't put all the eggs into the first 2 intermediate races of this season. But it's hard not to look at stats. And Keselowski, I think, has 60 total fastest laps between those first 2 races, and they're not it's not like he got 50 at Homestead and 10 at Las Vegas. They were very even. I think it was 28 and 32 if I remember right. If he can do that again here at Atlanta and pick up 30 fastest laps, get 20 laps led or something, and finish top 5, he's obviously going to get a great score, especially if the 2 biggest dominators are Larson and Truex. Then it makes sense for you to shove all 3 of those into one lineup. Me personally, like I said, if I single entry contest or something, I'll throw this in there. Don't love Stenhouse, but I like the upside. So if you look at Stenhouse here at Atlanta, there's definitely reason to consider him from an upside perspective. Look at this. 13th, 18th, 16th, 13th, 10th over the last 5 Atlanta races. And it's not like he's just gambling on tires. You look at these driver ratings, Stenhouse is actually good here. Yeah, he started up front for 4 of these races. Started 22nd here last year and finished 13th. This time he starts 12th. That team is running extremely well. If you read my preview article this week, again, I will link it in the description of this video. I talked about Stenhouse right here. If we go back and look at, so the high wear tracks last year, Stenhouse, average finish 19.4, average running position 20.2. It's average. Last 2 years at Atlanta, where Stenhouse, average running position of 15.5, average finish of 15.5. So comparing those two, high wear 2020, the last 2 years of 2019, obviously Stenhouse is better than normal at Atlanta. That's what I would take from that comparison. But strictly a tournament play there at 6,300. So just playing with this lineup a little bit. If we throw in Blaney in there, that can get us up to Custer, but that doesn't get... Don't hate it. Cole Custer was running like almost top 5 or in the top 5 at Homestead earlier this year. Obviously don't think he can repeat that this week, but there's upside there. Stewart-Haas is definitely very good at Atlanta. Will they come out flat again? Custer finished 19th last year after starting 31st. Pretty solid. But again, like, there has to be a little bit doubt in your head of, will Stewart-Haas come out flat again this weekend? It's hard to imagine them doing it again, but it's certainly possible. Another lineup that the optimizer spit out that I don't hate. Again, most of these lineups that it spit out started with Truex and Larson. Definitely the highest projected points were Truex, Larson, Reddick, Kurt Busch, Newman, Buescher. Again, it loves Buescher. I don't hate McDowell either there at 6,100. It's kind of a coin flip for me. As far as, I think they both have potential. Chances are I'd probably go more on Buescher than McDowell, but there's definitely potential there. Kurt Busch, though. So, oops. You remember back Homestead, he had the best green flag speed. He had the best green flag speed because he had a late pit stop, got new tires, ran a bunch of awesome lap times to end the race. Came back, finished top 10. Had, I think, 32 fastest laps, something like that, because of those new tires. So that's one thing that'll happen here at Atlanta on Sunday as well. If someone has a loose tire or someone has a tire go down and they have to pit under green, yeah, it sucks for their running position, but they are going to make up a ton of time if they're in the middle of a green flag run. Actually, if they're in the middle of a green flag run and it makes sense, other teams will probably just come to pit road no matter what. That's how important tires are at Atlanta. But so Kurt Busch, great at Homestead, fourth best average running position, decent at Las Vegas. I think that car fell off, if I remember right, a lot during that race, second half. But his stats here at Atlanta: 6th, 3rd, 8th, 7th, 4th in the last 5 Atlanta races. As you can see, single-digit finishes in all but 4 of his last 16 starts here. Like, the guy's just solid every single time. Yes, it's difficult to play, especially at $8,300 on DraftKings. It's difficult to play a driver starting 11th, but where do I have his ownership projection at? 17%. I don't mind, being like 25% on Kurt. Just because if he can get the fastest laps, his history here shows that he can be in the optimal lineup. Plus, it gets you off that chalk of Reddick or Cindric. That's also why I like Bowman in this price range. Get you off that chalk. Especially Cindric. you know, it's my first lineup. Obviously, I wrote up Cindric as a cash gameplay. It'd be a complete disservice if I didn't. The guy's starting dead last. Like, as long as he moves up a little bit, he's gonna get a ton of points. If he's top 20, he's gonna get plenty of points. My projections have him at 41.67 points with a ceiling of 65.4. So like single entry contest qualifiers, I'm staying away 100% because he's going to be so high owned in the single entry contest and in the qualifying contest. All you need is for him to scrub the wall or a bad pit stop, or like when BJ McLeod came to a complete stop on pit road and destroyed Ryan Preece's day in like 2019 here. All you need is something weird to happen, and then all of a sudden your lineup goes above everyone else's because 80% of the lineups, I don't think he'll be that high in single entry, but you get what I'm saying. So many people are going to have him in the single entry contest and in the qualifying contest that it's definitely advantageous to pivot to someone else. Pivot to a Kurt Busch. Even pivot to Reddick. Reddick should be super high owned in those as well, but not as much as Cindric, just because Cindric's starting 39th. And like I said, all you need is one thing to go wrong in those contests. Obviously, if you're mass entering lineups, you don't have to, but you definitely should have a decent amount of Cindric exposure. I still like being underweight, but you can't. I lost my train of thought there. But so the first lineup that the optimizer spit out with Cindric in it, with using my projections for Atlanta, it was Truex Larson, of course. Larson, Truex, Kurt Busch, Austin Cindric. I think it's the same lineup as before. Ryan Newman, Chris Buescher. It's the exact same one as before, I think, just with Cindric instead of Reddick. If you don't want to go with the Truex Larson combo, let's go. So obviously, place differential play could be Kyle Busch, could be Kevin Harvick. Let's do a lineup with Harvick and Larson because they're two of the top three highest priced drivers in DraftKings this week. Leaves us 7,150 remaining for the last four guys. I would. You don't have a ton of upside with Alfredo, but I feel like if you're going to go Harvick, I'm just trying to think. So I feel like most people, if they're putting Harvick on their lineup, and definitely if they're putting Harvick and Larson, they're going to just plug in Alfredo. So that could be your pivot point. Honestly, I don't mind. I don't like Justin Haley this week as much as, he tried to get in the optimal at Phoenix. I think he was like in the third best lineup or something. But Corey LaJoie had mechanical issues the first two intermediate races. That car's about like a 20, I would say is like a 27th, 26th place car. I would honestly think about pivoting up to Ryan Preece though, or Chris Buescher, obviously. Like I said, my projections love Chris Buescher. But let's do Buescher. Let's throw Buescher on there for now. And what if we do Preece and Buescher? Leaves us 84. You have to do like a Reddick Kurt Busch. Unless you came down here to the mid sevens. So you could do Harvick, Larson, Buescher, Preece, Reddick, Kurt Busch. And this is obviously if you're getting off the Alfredo chalk. If you did grab Alfredo, again, I don't mind staying off this Cindric Reddick chalk here. Harvick, Larson, Bowman, Kurt Busch, Buescher, Alfredo. So you got the chalk in Alfredo, you got the tournament play in Buescher. I think the tournament play in both Bowman and Kurt Busch. You obviously got Harvick, who's just been amazing here, and then Larson, who should have a great car. Don't hate this lineup by any means. Obviously, really relying on Buescher, but I think he can get it done. And obviously, you need Kurt Busch to get fastest laps and Alex Bowman to actually finish the damn race. But as I said in my DraftKings article, I am willing to go down on the Bowman train this week and last week and the week before. One of these days, he's going to win me some more money. But, so what if you did, so you got Harvick, let's do, instead of Larson, go down to Truex. Could you do then like a Ryan Blaney? Because I think Ryan Blaney has somewhat dominator potential here, in addition to Keselowski and Logano. Blaney, starting 10th and being lower priced than both, should go higher owned than both, but we'll see. So if we do Buescher, you could go Newman Jones. One guy I really don't hate this week is Ross Chastain. I haven't talked about him much in any of my articles, if any of them, but Larson obviously was really good here in that 42 car. Matt Kenseth last year drove that 42 car to a 15th place finish here. Let's see how he did at the other high wears. So I don't know it off the top of my head. 14th at Darlington. 10th at Darlington. I was 30th. That's a bad one. What am I missing? Darlington. 25th at Homestead. Not great. 15th at Atlanta. And then, what the hell am I missing? Atlanta, Homestead, Darlington. Oh, Auto Club. He didn't run that. I think Larson ran Auto Club last year. Right? Was that before his suspension? Yeah. Finished 21st. Didn't he have a better car than that, though? No. But Chastain finished 17th. I just think I was considering writing up Chastain as a GPP play. I think he could really surprise some people here on Sunday and, possibly even challenge for like a top 12, which I think could get him into the optimal. So this allows you to come up and grab Custer. If you didn't want to go Buescher, you wanted to go chalk Alfredo, this allows you to grab DiBenedetto or Almirola. I talked about Almirola in my FanDuel write-up on why I like him and why I think people are going to overlook him, both in FanDuel and DraftKings. So with this lineup, you have Harvick, Truex, Blaney, Almirola, Chastain, Alfredo. Don't hate it by any means. If you didn't want to go Harvick, you wanted to go Kyle Busch. Definitely think Kyle Busch. Atlanta's a driver's track, so the drivers with the talent are going to get to the front. Kyle Busch obviously has the talent. He knows how to drive a race car. He knows how to manage his tires. He had a very good car at Phoenix last week before the pit road incident, and then I think he just gave up. His record here at Atlanta is pretty damn solid. Second last year, 6th, 7th, got a 3rd back in 2016, 1st, 6th, just hasn't really dominated, and I don't expect him to dominate here on Sunday, but if he can get fastest laps, 20 fastest laps plus a top 8 finish, starting 19th, definitely a pivot off of Harvick. Don't love him as a pivot off of Larson. I think I love Truex and Larson this week. But with this lineup, we got Kyle Busch, Truex, Blaney. With that move, gives us an extra $400. We could then if you didn't want Almirola, you could jump up and grab Tyler Reddick or Kurt Busch. Or if you wanted to stick with Almirola, you then had enough to jump up and grab Priest instead of Alfredo, and also DiBenedetto instead of Almirola. Just going with that Kyle Busch, Truex, Blaney lineup. Let's do one last lineup here let's do Larson. Let's do nobody starting top 5. By the way, Chase Elliott, I don't love him by any means. He just doesn't put up dominator points here at Atlanta. And until he does, I'm just not going to pick him. He's made 5 starts here. He has 50 total fastest laps. It's just not, Kurt Busch has more, and Kurt Busch doesn't put up fastest laps. Yeah. Ryan Newman has, I think he got like 45 in one of the races, but he has 74 over the last 8, which is pretty high up there with Hamlin. It's another reason I don't love Hamlin this week, by the way. He rarely puts up the dominator points. But anyway, so if we throw Larson and Byron in there and Blaney, that gives us enough. Christopher Bell's an interesting play. Definitely a tournament play. Throw Newman on there. I know he's chalky, but he's just so reliable here. Let's jump down here to. It's so hard for me to. It's so hard for me to. I know he was in the optimal last week, but that's a different story at 5,500 compared to 6,300. It's even harder to pick Stenhouse this week, even with his record here at Atlanta. So I'm still, coming down here to Buescher, even McDowell. But if you grab Buescher here, Kurt Busch, Larson, Byron, Blaney, Kurt Busch, Newman, Buescher. I like it. Especially if you're looking at speed from this year, which again, don't do it, but it's hard not to. Anyway, so that does it for DraftKings. Let's move over to FanDuel a little bit. Definitely. So I pointed this out. I tweeted it out earlier today. I am fully convinced that FanDuel just took the exact odds order of this race and plugged it in for their driver pricing. Look at this. Harvick, Truex, Larson, Kez, top 4 in both. Chase Elliott 5th. Get creative. Come on, guys. What the hell? Because even we have this chalk play of Austin Cindric this week, and you follow the odds rank. Come on, do better. It's just so apparent this week. I know they like getting their pricing out before DraftKings, but man. Anyway, similar projections for FanDuel this week. Truex, Larson's projected the highest. Keselowski, Hamlin. It's so hard, especially in FanDuel, to take the pole sitter. And even the guy starting second for that matter. The thing is, they should both be top 5 cars, so you have those finish points. You won't have, the place differential. Love Kyle Busch this week. Love Ryan Blaney. Don't love the price tag of Harvick by any means. But looking at the top lineup, according to my FanDuel projections this week, is Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., of course. I swear I'm going to put together. When this is all said and done, I'm going to have lineups without these two both in it. It actually spits out Larson, Truex, Hamlin, Cindric. I passed him. Did I? Oh, yeah, they have him freaking priced at $6,200. Jesus. And then Ryan Newman. This lineup will work if all three of those guys get dominator points. Certainly possible. Certainly possible for Hamlin to lead the first 60 laps, Truex to lead the next 60 laps, Larson to come up there and lead 100 laps. You know, it's possible. When I'm putting in a FanDuel lineup, though, that's not the route I'm going. I don't hate the bottom two guys by any means. And I think this opens up the door to definitely leave Cap on the table this week. If you wanted to go Kyle Larson and Martin Truex, you know, pivot down to a Kyle Busch, pivot down to Ryan Blaney. And, you know, I mentioned this in the article, in the lineup construction part. I don't hate leaving Cap on the table this week. I think it's even more of a possibility than normal. Obviously, it's a possibility every week with FanDuel when you're only dealing with 5 drivers in a lineup, but definitely possible this week. The second lineup that the projections have, which I like a lot better, is Larson, Truex, Bowman. You're my boy, Bowman. Just come through for me once, please. Kurt Busch, obviously we talked about him and why. And then with the $6,500 left over, it has Cindric. You could also throw in Newman. I don't think it's as risky taking Stenhouse this week. Definitely getting off that Cindric chalk and Newman chalk, in FanDuel at least. Another lineup that my projections like is Truex, Larson, Kyle Busch, of course. I was so heavy on Kyle Busch last week, and it's probably going to be the same again this week. Truex, Larson, Kyle Busch, Reddick, Buescher. Again, I definitely like Buescher. I'm talking myself into it more and more, but you can definitely go. You know, if you didn't want Buescher, like I said, talked about Chastain. Didn't talk a lot about McDowell, but he was solid at Homestead. Doesn't have the track record here at Atlanta. You know, that would, if he had a better track record, I'd be more over him. Really doesn't. No finish better than 24th ever. Don't love him as much as I forgot that. If you didn't want Larson and Truex in your FanDuel lineup, if you think Kez is going to dominate this race, start out with him. You know, could you do... Actually, let's do this. Let's do Kyle Busch, Blaney, Byron. Leave us an average of $9,400. And then you could do... If you do Bowman... Okay, just looking at what I got here. So you could do like a Bowman, Christopher Bell, like, not loving that lineup. But let's jump down here and grab... You could do Reddick, Logano. If you think Logano's going to dominate this race, I don't. But Kyle Busch, Blaney, Byron, Reddick, Logano. Solid lineup there. You could also jump down to... let's get Cindric. That allows you to grab Larson. Larson, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Austin Cindric. You could then make another lineup with Ryan Newman instead of Austin Cindric, with Chris Buescher instead of Austin Cindric. If you did that, that also opens the door to grab Keselowski or to get Truex with that core three of Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, William Byron. You'd have to jump down to Michael McDowell, Daniel Suarez, Ryan Preece. We talked about Ryan Preece and his upside, definitely possible. Let's look at Preece. Definitely nothing guaranteed. We all know how Ryan Preece ran last year. Tons of bad luck. But you look at this, average running position 22.9 on high wear tracks, average finish position of 26th. When I see that, it tells me I don't even have to look back at the results. I know that that team either had problem finishing races or ran into a lot of bad luck. See the same thing here with Truex. Average running position 7.2, average finish 11.2. Chase Elliott, average running position is 6.6, average finish of 12.7. They either made stupid pit calls or had bad luck or whatever, but tells you that they were actually better than just looking at the results. So I don't love going super heavy on Preece. Definitely like being overweight on him if I'm, FanDuel putting in 150 lineups. Having him at, I honestly, when I say I'm bad at DraftKings projected ownership, I'm even worse at FanDuel. Mainly because I haven't been playing FanDuel, definitely not as long as I have DraftKings, but it's a little bit different with just 5 drivers. But at $4,500, that leaves so much cap space for you to work with. Plus he has, if he can sneak in a top 15, there's a very good chance that he's going to be in the optimal. So that's going to do it for me. Good luck at Atlanta. The final race before the big shit show at Bristol Dirt. I'm going to put out my content for the Bristol Dirt race, but I'm not looking forward to it. And I might just put one lineup in DraftKings and one lineup in FanDuel that race and enjoy it, watch it, I guess. I don't even know if I'm going to enjoy it. Should definitely be interesting. I don't think many people are going to really know what to expect. But we got to get through Atlanta first. I love Atlanta. I love the racing in Atlanta. I love the tire fall off. When I checked earlier this week, there was no weather concerns. So, yeah, good luck. See you next week. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.